In a related development, the Economic Community of West African States has strongly condemned the attempted military takeover in the Republic of Benin. Military personnel in Benin on Sunday announced that they had ousted President Patrice Talon, although his entourage said he was safe and an army was regaining control. Reacting to or in a statement it released in Abuja on Sunday, West African Bloc said it received the report of an attempted coup with dismay, calling for full respect to the Constitution of Benin. The regional bloc also saluted the efforts of the government and the Republican Army in bringing the situation under control. Now, still on the Benin attempted coup, the Nigerian government has strongly condemned Sunday's attempted coup in Benin Republic, describing it as a direct attack on democracy and constitutional order. Gunfire erupted near President Patrice Talon's residence as a group calling themselves the Military Committee of Refoundation claimed to dissolve state institutions and remove the president. The Benin government swiftly announced that Talon was safe and that loyal forces are regaining control. In a statement, Nigeria commended Benin's authorities for promptly protecting democratic structure and praised the security forces for resisting the plot. The statement urged stakeholders in Benin to respect legal processes and warned the unconstitutional power grabs threatened regional stability. It reaffirmed its commitment to democratic governance across West Africa. Now, joining us to discuss this development and what the recent events in West Africa mean for the future of democratic governance are African Affairs Analyst Dr. Paul Ejime and Global Affairs Analyst Tabenyang Etchu. You're welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
I'll start with you, Tabenyang. What does this attempted coup reveal about potential vulnerabilities within Benin's military command structure?
It is obvious that there is a break within the military ranks, and what we are seeing is a kind of a contagion effect in the region, and you're beginning to see the hidden hands of the global powers or geopolitical influence. You can see that the rebel leader has appeared on Russian TV, and then you're seeing that President Talon is with the West. So you're beginning to see a tightening of the grip as far as the Russians are concerned in the region, and the West being as if they are losing control of the area.
Mm-hmm. And now, still on you, how significant is it that the ringleaders were able to plan operations before being spotted? And of course, does this indicate gaps in counterintelligence or internal monitoring?
Absolutely. There's no way you're going to deny that there've not been some gaps within the intelligence establishment to allow the coup plotters, to the extent that they actually took over the national television station and made that announcement before the authorities could scramble to try to re-establish some degree of order. But as of now, the situation is still very fluid. You really don't know exactly either where the president is or where the rebel leader is. So everybody is actually still in doubt as to what is happening on the ground.
Right. Paul, I'll drop this one on you. Now, based on patterns of similar coup attempts in West Africa, and of course we've seen a rise in this particular season, what political, economic, and institutional pressures are most likely to have motivated these soldiers?
So, well, let me quickly inform us that President Talon has just appeared on, not from anywhere near the presidential palace, where he's being kept, where he's staying. They say he's under, security protection. But he has come out to thank the armed forces and then condemn what he called, those who wanted to scuttle the government institution. But that is the truth. He has come out. And then what he's coming out to say this, and his ministers rebuffing, saying that there was a mutiny or a failed coup, while the coup leader is also appearing on another channel, shows the lack of multilateral, coordination that used to be in the past. And this has given rise to anybody can do anything and then we'll have support. I thought I should put in there that one there. But the soldiers also mentioned something about the fact that they are fallen heroes, referring to those who are fighting, the jihadists. Because let's face it, the region is facing insecurity problem. It's not just Benin. It's across Sahel and then ECOWAS region. So they are saying that government has not has neglected them, those who died and then their families, and that there are taxes. You are talking about economic issues, that the rise in taxes, and then there is no health care for some of them. You know, these are some of the social economic issues. But the military aspect is the fact that people are fighting and are dying. They are accusing government of not taking care of their colleagues, and that is why they have struck. But beyond that, you will also see the fact that Talon has not covered himself in glory. He has been ruling with an iron fist.
Yes.
Several of his opponents are in jail or either or out of the country on exile. One of them, a woman, after an election, the last election, is still in jail, accused of terrorism. And so that's shrinking of the democratic space. And then the fact that he appears to be, like most African leaders, there was a change in the constitution by the parliament, extending the tenure of president from 5 to 7 years. Mm-hmm. Even though he says he's not running, but he's supporting one of his chosen candidates. So there has been that disconnect between the politicians who are ruling and then the people. And the military now seems to be finding a way of filling that gap. You know, they say there is no vacuum in life. So soldiers, with their own opportunistic tendencies or also power grab, are also looking for the fact that politicians are not delivering.
Yes.
They too are carrying out what you call constitutional coups, rigging elections, and then trampling on the people's human rights.
Paul, I was on you, and I'd like to just swing this question back to you. Now, you did mention before the break the influence, rather, that the Sahel has. And I know that when the coups did take place, especially when we looked at Burkina Faso, there was a bit of a hail that was taking place, towards Captain Ibrahim Traore. But I wanted to hear from you that to what extent could coup contagion from the Sahel, and I say this, regions like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, be influencing military behavior in coastal states like Benin?
Then I think the military are copying themselves in this, using this rule book. And I have told you part of the problem is really the fact that the civilians have not governed. They are not governing, they are actually taking care of themselves and their families and their cronies. And so the people, they have left the people, and there is disaffection, which spills from the civilian population and then into the military. And then that is what is happening now. But let me also add here that you have seen, it is not just the Nigerian fighter jets that have been involved in this firefight. The French and even Ghanaians have also been involved. You now see what the region has become. I hope it doesn't turn into a theater of, geopolitics where the West will be fighting, and we are not back in the era of Cold War or so that is another issue. But whether West Africa is a coup belt, it has now is living up to its name, and it shows that politicians have learned nothing and then forgotten nothing. Right. Because in the 70s and the 80s, this was where the region started from, where they now started moving to the multi-party system. In fact, Benin started it in 1996 with the constitutional conference that they had, and had a constitution that really put everybody in order, saying that you cannot, in your lifetime, you cannot aspire to govern for 3 terms. You are just entitled to 2 terms in your lifetime. So it's not a case of, because third term and elongation of power is part of the problem. But this is the issue. This is what we're living with, which is unfortunate. Now, 5, close to 6 member states of ECOWAS out of 15 are now being governed by military military rulers after coups, and which is not is a bad commentary for the region and for ECOWAS, and then for the politicians, because they are partly, in fact, they largely to blame for this fact, because they have not delivered on good governance, and that is what these are the results we are seeing now.
Now, I'd like us to speak to the indicators, Tabenyang. What indicators should analysts at this point look at to understand whether these coup attempts reflect deeper discontent within armed forces, or is it rather an isolated factional plot?
At this time, it cannot be an isolation. It is deeper structure within the governance systems, like what the other analyst is saying, within some of these governance structures in the region. And I'll be remiss not to say that we are getting back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, when the region was marred by coup d'etats. And a lot of people who could really look back into that period could see how bloody and the suppression of political freedom, the suppression of economic activities, the lack of investment in that region. So we're beginning to see that narrative gain a foothold again in the region, which is really not good. I think he talked about the contagion effect. If you look at what is happening in the region right now, you see social media stories telling you Burkina Faso is doing so well. It really calls for concern when in actuality that might not be true. So it influences some of the other militaries in the region to try to also copy what has gone in there. You look at the insecurity, look at what they are pointing to, solidarity with their fallen comrades and their families that supposedly have been abandoned, the deepening economic distress and hardship in the entire region, not even only in West Africa, in Central Africa. The political charade that you see in some of those countries, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, even close to in Equatorial Guinea, they are breeding grounds for you to see as pointers that the disconnect between the people, the military, and like he said, the creation of a vacuum, somebody is going to fill the vacuum. But overall, we have to understand that the people are not looking for this governance or governing structures like democracy or the military or some kind of monarchy. They're looking for who can provide them a better living condition for their families, economic prosperity, jobs, healthcare. As you can see, that's one of the things that they pointed to. So it is imperative that we should look closely. What are the underlying causes of this destabilization? It's not just enough for the ECOWAS, the AU to come out as usual with these generic statements of condemning the coups. I see even Nigeria putting out a statement celebrating the valiance of the Beninois military. But if we do not address the fundamental issues that are causing these young officers who have been disillusioned, who feel that they have not been given the opportunity to participate in the governance of their own countries, if we do not address these issues by the old gang that has been there since the 1960s and the 90s and the early 2000s, we are going to continue to see this trend.
Now, Tabenyang, still on you. When we talk about trust, in government institutions, how might this event reshape civilian trust in the institutions that govern a society and a country?
I think that the first thing that the government has to do is to demonstrate its magnanimity in engaging with the rebellious soldiers, so that the people can begin to understand that these issues that have been pointed out by the coup plotters, these are real issues that need to be addressed. If they are not addressed in a transparent way for the people to begin to regain the trust that the government is addressing the key issues that affect their lives, then it will be very, very difficult for people to regain trust in the institutions of the state.
Now, to you, Dr. Paul, there are also criticisms that ECOWAS hasn't been consistent in addressing previous coups. Now, do you think that inconsistency has also helped fuel this trend that is, taking place right now?
Very much so, because I just came from Guinea-Bissau, and where elections were held on the 23rd, very peaceful and orderly. But the gentleman there who is in charge decided, after the Electoral Commission said they were going to declare, announce the provisional results on 27th, he actually manufactured a military coup to put all his, his cronies to take power, and then he's there somewhere dictating to them what they are doing. It shows, but this is one person who has violated ECOWAS protocol and instruments. In fact, in March, he threatened to expel an ECOWAS and UN mission, and nothing happened. And then he has sacked the National Assembly, the Parliament. Mm-hmm. So as we speak, even when the election was taking place, there was no National Assembly. Nothing happened to him. And then he has gone on and on to do things that violated the ECOWAS protocol. And ECOWAS hasn't mustered that power to even call him to attention. And then in Togo, Ejime 4 had changed the constitution to hold an election before, the protocol says you cannot change the electoral law 6 months before an election. But he changed it in March and conducted an election in April. ECOWAS did nothing. And so on and so forth. So if you now allow these people to, with this impunity, with no consequence, they are going to do, just carry on. And this is where we are. ECOWAS of the past used to have that feat of calling, not just suspending people or imposing sanctions, but looking into its own instruments to see that change of government illegally is not only by a military tool. These civilians are carrying out all these other coups, constitutional rigging election, without consequence. And that is why, and when the civilians come out to protest, they come heavy on them using the military. Now the military has learned that they have the power. If they can use them to quell protests, why can't they now take over the power by themselves? So this is a musical chair that we are dealing with, but it's not good for the region, it's not good for Africa. And I think everybody is to blame, not just the politicians, but also the people voting. Yes. Perhaps there has to be some reorientation of everybody, all stakeholders involved in election or democratic this experiment that we are having, to know that voters should not be collecting whatever it is they collect every election cycle to put people who will not deliver. And that after putting them there, they start complaining. So everybody has to jump in, let the voters, the citizens, demand their right. Their power belongs to them. And that they use that vote to be able to put people who will deliver, not those who will give them crumbs during during each election and continue to steal from the Commonwealth for the rest of the period they are governing. So everybody has to be there, and also the judiciary. The judiciary has to understand.
Unfortunately,
you have seen some contradictory judgments all over the place. Even Parliament, the parliaments where you have a parliament that says it is a rubber stamp or whatever the executive says, that is what they do. These are all, you put that all in the mix and you find that everybody has a role to play to get good governance.
Thank you. Thank you so much, gentlemen. A dicey conversation, but good insights from the both of you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.